Tonight, we have a very special guest speaker, Dr. Stacy Friedman, and we wanted to give some information on Dr. Friedman today. Dr. Friedman is a clinical sexologist and certified sex coach. She got involved in the field of clinical psychology because of her passion for helping people learn to experience the best sexual intimacy within themselves and with their partners. Dr. Stacy is a member of the World Association of Sex Coaches and of the American College of Sexologists, which shows she has earned top credentials in her field. Congratulations with that.
Yes.
Dr. Stacy works with all aspects of sexuality and specializes in women's issues. And she offers coach sessions via phone and video throughout the state of Florida. And she will be giving her information at the end of her processing of the presentation. And tonight we welcome you, Dr. Stacy Friedman, to the Hope and Healing Foundation. And tonight, we have a very special topic, exploring the various forms of intimacy. I'm very interested in this, along with my wife, being a sexologist. We go back and forth of different modalities of treatment for people. So tell me about this presentation and the information I'm presenting tonight.
Well, I think that a lot of people, when they hear the word intimacy, they're not exactly sure how to kind of understand what is intimacy compared to what is sex.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, when they say, well, I need more intimacy, and then the partner's like, I'm giving you all the sex that I can, there's not that differential as to really understanding what is the difference and just understanding all the different types of intimacy that we have possible in a relationship. So I think that this is a much needed conversation to help people really understand how you can build these different forms of intimacy with your partner.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it is a major difference. Nicole kind of tugged me the other night, and I said, well, are we going to be talking about sex all night? I mean, I don't know. She said, no, Cedric, it's a very big difference between intimacy and sex. Okay, and she was trying to explain it, and I said, well, I'll wait for the doctor to give us a thorough explanation of it. So tell us what's the difference, because men have a hard time,
some women do
dividing
too.
two.
Some
Okay.
women do too. You just have to be educated on it.
Exactly. Well, I think, like you said, it is more so a lot of the men that struggle more than the women do, but there are women that don't understand also the whole idea behind intimacy. But it's actually kind of, when I talk to people and I say to them, when you think, and I'm not going to generalize, but I'm just saying, let's say more often men. So maybe I will generalize. That's what I meant. More often men, I'll say, well, what is intimate to you? And for them, it's sex. But I say, but is it really that actual action of in and out? What is it about the sex? And they'll say, oh, well, I like when, we touch and we kiss and they start naming things that are intimate type of connections. So they're not just talking about the in and out, you know? So it's sometimes the way they describe it. And then when I say to women and I say, well, if you're with a male partner, usually they'll say, well, all they want is sex. I said, but what does that mean to you? And they're like, oh, all he wants to do is have sex. But if I say to them, what does that really mean when you say sex? And the guy will come back and say the feelings that he's having, the way he wants to feel loved. Then they're like, oh, okay. So it's really not the actual act. That's how he feels loved. Mm-hmm. And so it's confusing sometimes for both people when you're saying the word intimacy and sex. Even though they're two different words, people may look at it as the same thing.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So intimacy could mean the same thing as sex could mean to somebody else. But in reality, I look at sex, if you're thinking of the actual words, sex is more of an act, is something that you do. And intimacy is more of the feelings that come along to help you with the act. It's kind of...
Would that be the same as being a romantic, quote unquote type of person, intimate type of person? Is that similar, or is that different? Is that different?
It could depend, because there's so many different types of intimacy. So it depends on what someone needs to feel that connection. And some people need the romance. Some people need more of the physical. Some people more of the actual sexual. Some people more of the emotional. And that just goes back to showing that there's so many different types of intimacy. The important thing is actually having that communication with your partner and saying, okay, well, what makes you feel connected? What kind of intimacy do you need to feel love, to feel, you know, as one, to feel that you want to be sexual? And that's kind of where you find out what your partner actually likes.
So that sounds like it has one to find out what intimacy is with your partner. It has to do with communication is one of the key points. And so having that, one is figuring out talking with the person to determine what it is that they need or they want. It's not just having the expectation of just doing. You have to have these conversations with your partner to determine what it is that you can give for them if they haven't already expressed it to you.
Exactly. And many times I'll have people sitting on the couch in front of me, and it's kind of like, especially if it's a man and a woman, it doesn't connect. And so when the guy is like, well, I'm trying to be intimate, I'm trying to be romantic, and the girl's like, no, that's not the intimacy I'm talking about. And he looks at her and he's like, I'm clueless. It's just not. So if you don't mind, I want to go over just a few different types of intimacy.
Yes.
So that way people can understand what other things besides the actual act of sex could be intimate. Yes. And some of those things, there could be anywhere from like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, different forms of intimacy. But I think one of the more common spheres is the 8 types of intimacy. And the first one is spiritual. A lot of people feel intimate with someone that they connect to on a higher level, spiritual level, a religious level, maybe somebody you meet at church and you have, or temple, and you have that connection with them. That could really help build intimacy and closeness. Mm-hmm. And when people sometimes feel like, you know what, I'm not feeling close to you, they might want to feel closer with you to their God or their spiritual, affection that they're feeling. Mm-hmm. There's also actual physical, and that doesn't necessarily mean sex. It means hand holding, taking a walk together, giving each other hugs, kisses, kind of like that type of thing. Actually, not even just those types of things, because that kind of goes along with the affection type of intimacy where you're doing actual affectionate things. So the physical, in addition to like hand holding, it could be something like riding bikes together, exercising together, building up that adrenaline to have that connection with a partner. You know, they say that, you ever see like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette? The show, and they have people jumping out of planes, climbing down walls. They're doing something physical together to build that adrenaline, and they get all excited. And they're like, oh my God. And then right away it brings them connected and they start making out. Yes, it's a TV show.
But it happens in real life too, all that adrenaline and all the things that are flowing through you.
Exactly. So
and
that's
experience together.
Right. And that's kind of the physical intimacy that people may need. So then like I said, we have the affection where people are hand holding, hugging, kissing, all that kind of stuff. Social, going out to parties, to different types of things like museums, different things that they like with other friends, going out to dinner with people, doing things in the social atmosphere that they can connect to others. And when you see sometimes your partner with other people and connected to you at the same time, you look at that partner like, look at this environment we have that we're building. And that can build some social intimacy. Emotional, connecting with words, connecting with thoughts, feelings. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men are like, feelings? What's that? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So the emotional is talking about what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And so there's a lot of people that sit there and they're just like, I try to talk to them and all they're doing is, yeah, I hear you. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they're playing on their phone and they're not looking at you. They're not feeling like they're listening to you. Mm-hmm. That is a disconnect of intimacy. Mm-hmm. And that's, especially nowadays with the phones, that's what people are doing.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to break. That's something that as in therapy, I have to learn how to teach people to break it, to be able to then get to that place. So when they have it, and sometimes when you break that, it's like, now what? Now what do we do?
It's true. And even
because you don't know. It's
true.
a part of the culture.
Who do I talk to? What do I say? Going to bed at night, a lot of times, you know, take some of that time to talk instead of being on your phones before you go to bed. You know, and people were in that habit of doing that. And sometimes even just a 5-minute conversation about how was your day? How are you feeling about things? Was there anything that I could help you with? Or, you know, just sharing how you feel about your situation. So the emotional is a really big, I think, bigger part of the intimacy that a lot of people may be missing.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We have aesthetic, sharing something beautiful, going to a place where you can look at, like, here we have the Murakami with the butterflies, looking at beautiful beaches, looking at just mountains and things like that when you travel, going to places like that and appreciating the outside world.
Yeah.
That helps you with appreciation and intimacy. Intellectual, you know, being able to have a conversation. There are people that are considered demisexual. Have you heard that term?
I have. Have you?
I have not. Educate me, please.
Educate. Demisexual are people that don't necessarily feel connected or attracted to their partner unless they are stimulated by them intellectually. So they may not look at someone in this world and think, okay, well, yeah, they're attractive, but I have no sexual desire. And then all of a sudden they start talking to the person starts, you know, causing creativity in their brain or connecting on an intellectual level. And all of a sudden that person might be like, God, listen to that brain of theirs. I'm hot, you know, and that's kind of what a demisexual, am I right?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
I love you so much. I think that's why I love her so much.
See, because she's smart.
I don't think you're just that, honey.
That could help.
I don't think so, but it's part of it.
That's fine.
That could help. But that's another aspect of intimacy. And then of course you have the sexual. Did I count all 8? I don't know. I didn't count. But sexual is the actual outer course or inner course, the connection of kissing and getting on top of the body and doing whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to mean actual intercourse. And that's why I said outer course. It could just be the way you're connecting at an outer level. So I think all those stages of intimacy, you really need to know what hits you to be able to feel intimate and sexual in a relationship.
Yeah, and it sounds, did you learn something?
No, I wanted to ask a question, Doc.
He's like, I just want sex. What is she talking about?
A lot of stuff for a man. But I'm following you on it, and I kind of, you're educating me a little bit more. Okay, intimacy to me, I think for a long time was more of the sexual, physical. Okay, but let me ask you, and get off kind of tilt here. Sure. During the COVID, since this past year, and you being a couples coach / therapist, what differences have you seen? Okay, moreover now since the COVID, what kind of issues have you been dealing with couples since this time?
Well, I don't do actual therapy. It's more coaching. If people need some deep-rooted therapy or things that I can't, I would definitely pass them on. But what I have noticed is I've actually been busier than I've ever been during this time. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, people have been over the last year stuck home more often with their partners, and they're not used to it. And so they're either finding out, okay, I'm not happy with this relationship. I was not really realizing the depths of our disconnect because we were always running out and coming back in and leaving and coming back. But now that we've been home more often, working from home, having the kids at home, I'm realizing I can't stand my partner. or not that I can't stand it, or just like, wow, I didn't realize how disconnected we really were. And people can't get out as much to do the dates and have babysitters and people coming over because people are being careful. Hopefully, with vaccines and all that kind of stuff, with people being able to get out a little more, that'll help. But I have found that a lot of people are really having to evaluate their relationships more now than ever before.
And do you find that this, like the conversation we're having about intimacy is something that they have maybe never had, or they're having to
Absolutely.
readdress? And the COVID, what I found during the pandemic, has exacerbated whatever issues were already there or created new ones. And people are looking and like, oh, that's you. Like, oh, I didn't even know who you were. Like you said, they've been passing each other for quite a while.
Right.
And so now they're coming to you. And so how is it that you find that people are having these conversations to be able to find out the parts of the intimacy? Like, is it that people tend to never have these conversations and never knew what it was, that you're having to do a lot of education and pulling it out, or maybe they knew and kind of it got lost?
I think a lot of people know, but because they're so busy, it's an excuse to not get support or help for it. Mm-hmm. And now they're being forced to be in a situation where they're like, okay, we really need to figure this out because this is just not working. Or I have found people actually are having more time where they're like, okay, well, now I have the time, but because we never spoke about it before, what do we do with it? So they're in a better place because they have the time and they're enjoying their partner, but they don't know how to move forward. And so that's kind of I'm getting a good mix of people, but more so the people that just have not really had the time to communicate and don't really know what to say and what to do and how to even get that conversation started. And basically, when I talk to people, that Love Language book by Gary Chapman is amazing because she's smiling like Michaela's smiling like, I know that book. But it is, I mean, and I find that people don't realize, because a lot of times you're sitting there and you're like, I'm giving them all these hugs and kisses and all that kind of stuff when the person really just wants to have quality time or gifts, you know, or whatever the love language is that they feel. But a lot of times people are taking that love language that they want and putting it on their partner to try to get something back from them. And it's doing the opposite effect. So we try to first see, well, what do you need to feel the love? And what kind of intimacy is important to you? And so a lot of times I'll go through these different types of intimacy. And of course, like Cedric said, that I just, you know, the sex is just, that's all I need, you know. But I'll tell you, men think that it's just the sex. But if I say to somebody, in your marriage, if you're just going to have your partner sitting there and giving you sex, is that really enough? Do you want them to enjoy it? Do you want them to feel connected? Do you want them to come up to you during the day and just give you hugs and kisses? Do you want that affection? They're like, well, of course, yeah. Because otherwise, if they're not, you know, if we're not connecting that way, a lot of times I don't find them attractive. Mm-hmm. So even though you may say, oh, you know, I just want the sex, if you're in usually a longer term marriage, it's much more difficult. I find a lot of men have erectile issues because they're not connecting emotionally to their partners. Mm. And then they're like at, you know, 50, 60 years old going, why isn't it not working? Well, because you have no connection to your partner.
Yeah, lost interest in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, you can go meet 20-year-old, you know, girl who's in perfect shape and be like excited or something like that. But then many times when I talk to men who have gotten divorced and are trying to do that, they still can't if they're in those ages between, let's say, 45, 65 years old, because they're not connecting to that person. So they're like, I don't understand why I can't get it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And not understanding their own of what they need themselves. So if they're thinking they just need the physical and they're not paying attention to the other forms of intimacy that you were stating, then they may not be able to perform properly or be able to connect to somebody because they're not understanding what they even need to be able to connect.
It's true. And like what Cedric was saying about, you know, you, the intellectual, the demisexual. What if she wasn't smart and was just be like, yeah, hi. You know, you may be like, okay, I don't need to have sex. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Well, I tell you this, and that was, you know, it's surprising that you said it and defined it because that was one of my major things that attracted me to my wife. Okay. She was smart. Okay. She was on point. I even tested her to see how smart she was. Okay. And she passed with all flying colors. And I think from that point, other than she's beautiful as hell. From that point, I had a more of attraction. So I can say that intimacy had started, that it was a non-sexual thing. Okay. And I couldn't really define it then. But even she said, if I wasn't as smart, you wouldn't love me as much. No, I would never say that, but no, I mean, I know that when I first started to socialize with her, that was the main attraction was. Okay.
So the social intimacy.
Yeah, that social intimacy. Yeah. And then we went out a couple of times before we even dated and stuff. So it was like a big social thing. Okay. But her brains was, I think,
intellectual
top things. Yeah. So I have to give it to you, girl.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that attraction will build the more different types of intimacy that you're able to open up with each other.
Yes.
And so that's going to be important when you're looking at working on your relationship. Try to see what points of intimacy are you missing and how can you build that up. And sometimes it's like, people are so used to just going about their everyday business, coming home, doing what they got to do. And then their life is just kind of like this. And then sometimes you just say, go to a comedy club and just laugh. And then when you start having fun and you're being, in that social atmosphere, you see your partner sometimes in a different light and you're laughing with them and you're like, okay, this is what I'm attracted to. Look at their smile. Look at their joy, So
when they talk about spicing it up, when you say that, it's kind of what I hear now thinking of that term. It's almost like spicing it up. It means so many different things.
Absolutely.
It's spicing it up in a sense of, what does that mean for you? Spicing it up to see them socially interacting, spicing them up of maybe we need to go somewhere so you can show the intellectual component, or somewhere where we can see something beautiful, and sharing these different experiences with one another to be able to connect and feel this intimacy.
Or you might just need a new pair of handcuffs.
As simple as that.
It could be as simple as that.
Speaking of that, okay, Doc, what would you say to a couple who came to you and said that we never had a connection? Okay, it was all about sex. We met each other. It was a one-night stand. We liked it, and we continued that relationship. Now that we know each other, we really don't like each other. How would you? But we still want to have something. So how would you kind of navigate? I'm just throwing you a curveball with that. But how would you kind of navigate?
Nicole, you have a therapy spot open?
That's deep.
That's kind of deep. I mean, because I'm going back to the men thinking about sex, okay?
Right.
We're not thinking of intimacy. We may think about a little romance, that candlelight dinner or something like that. But we're if we're alpha male or whatever, it's a sexual thing to us. We're not knowledgeable on that kind of intimacy part. So if I say, hey, listen, it was always sex from the start, and the woman agrees, and they said, now we want to have a relationship. So how can we now learn each other?
Well, it's a good question. And as long as you're getting along and you see that there is potential, then you can look at all these different types of intimacy and start trying to do different things. Start the conversation and say, okay, well, what kind of hobbies do you like? You want to try to find things in common. And I think that that's a big thing too, is being able to find something that you can do with your partner to find that connection. Because a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that lose that. So they may have enjoyed the sex and they may have enjoyed doing things together, but actually grew apart. So it's kind of similar to what you're saying. But here you have these people that they enjoy having sex together, but they're not really getting along otherwise, yes, they definitely would need some type of possible marital therapy, but I think it's just exploring the different types of intimacy to figure out, take a trip together, do some, photography in the mountains, get massages, try to hold hands, try to even just start on that low level, not low level, but small level, And a lot of times I even ask people, I had this one couple, which I remember saying, well, when was the last time that you given each other a hug? Something as simple as a hug. Oh gosh, you know, it's been a long time. I mean, we give each other like a quick little, you know, hi, goodbye type of thing. I said, well, do you ever just like sit there and give each other like a 20-second hug, just to hold each other, smell your skin, feel the warmth of the body, and just kind of connect and try to feel safe in their arms? They go, oh God, we don't even have time. We're just going, you know, when I'm leaving, she's coming in and vice versa. And I said, so you're telling me in a 24-hour day, you don't have 20 seconds to stop what you're doing when you're going this way and she's going this way, to stop right here. And instead of taking 2 seconds to say goodbye, take an extra 18 seconds and hug each other? Just get divorced.
Yeah.
No,
sounds like they need to turn it in. Okay.
Right. But that's the thing, is that people really need to take the time out of their day to make a point and find some of those different places of intimacy to see if that can build along with that sex.
And I think that that's important of how you stated it, is that it doesn't have to always take so much time.
No, absolutely not.
And that's what gets people, is that because they think it has to take so much time to build the intimacy and to do these things, that we're just not going to do it. And so that you just push it off. And then the next thing you know is that you're so distant and far apart from your partner.
Well, but that's why when he said that to me, and he's like, yeah, he goes, we're going back and forth. We don't even have time to hug. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, I said, you're telling me you don't have 20 seconds in a day? And he goes, all right, you got me.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Seconds.
And so
that's giving no excuse. That's not an excuse.
Not at all. And so we've been talking a lot about in heterosexual relationships. It's kind of been what we've been basing it on. Do you find that there's any difference in the focus in issues with intimacy in any of the other sexual orientations that you
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually have 2 couples right now. Both of them are lesbian couples. I have worked with plenty of LGBTQ couples because that's one of my specialties. But, you know, you have 2 women, and one of them has a much higher sex drive than the other. One of them can communicate, the other one can't. It's the same thing. People are the same. It's just about finding that person. Because you have people where a lot of people think that the guys are the ones that always have the high sex drives. And many times people come to me and they're like, I don't know, something's wrong with me. I can't get my husband to want to have sex. And so it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, agender, bigender, transgender, whatever you are, people are going to be different. And so I think that it doesn't really matter what kind of a relationship you're in. I think that that connection is what's going to help you when you do communicate with each other, because it's not just about communication. You can communicate all you want, but if you're not feeling intimate with someone, that communication is not going to help you get as deep as if you had that intimacy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so you're communicating about it, but then you have to actually put these things into action and see how you feel when you're doing them. Seeing if that connection is there, and then repeating them and then continuing it.
Yeah, and I see that with all different types of relationship, because right now it's just the one lady is just so frustrated with her wife because her wife just has no desire and just doesn't do anything, doesn't give her affection, and so I think it just goes in all different types of relationships.
It shows it's human. It's humankind. Is that we have a tendency to not sometimes pay attention to ourselves and know ourselves as much. And if that's the case, sometimes you may not pay attention to your partner as much, or the opposite. You pay attention to your partner too much and not enough to yourself. And those things can be things that can be damaging to your relationship. So it's kind of, from what I'm hearing from you, is paying attention to both selves, paying attention to yourself, to your partner, understanding it and each other, and determining what these intimacy levels is that you need, that you both share in common, and also that your partner needs. Because that's what you're talking about with the love languages, is that it may not be yours, but it may be, you have to learn that though, because we give other people what we think. So if you find something that is, you like aesthetics to be something that is you find intimate, but your partner doesn't, you have to figure that out as well, just like love languages.
Absolutely. You need to be able to be open to trying different things with your partner and doing things that may be beneficial for them that doesn't necessarily do much for you. And I think it's also important. I know my husband actually asks me every single day, what can I do for you today? Is there anything you need? You know, do you need some help with something? And every morning I just look at him and I'm thinking, this person is just very attentive and very emotional and asking me if I need some support for anything. It could be anything. And that is something that he knows that makes me feel good and connected. And so that's what he does every single day. And so if people paid attention to trying to figure out what their partner needed to support them and got it in return, that's how you stay connected, is really being able to talk to your partner and figuring out what is it that you need that I could do for you, and what is it that I need the support for as well.
Yeah. And I think that that's so important. I think it's been something that's been lacked of, kind of been a stigma, in a sense it's weird if I'm saying this, a stigma to communicate with your partner. If you see things if you're the way that we've been taught, even if you see sitcoms, if you see different things, it's a funny thing to not like your partner. And when you have that shows a part of the culture. If we're speaking about America, we'll just talk about that right now,
right?
Since that's where we're at. If you have that as part of your shows, if you have that as part of your culture, typically in sitcoms and TV shows, it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah. People just don't know really even how to talk about it. And that's another thing, is that people will say, well, I don't even know how to bring it up. Especially like during sex, people will be doing something, and there's more women than men that come to me and say, every time I have sex, it's out of obligation. And women are not allowing themselves to be empowered sexually, to ask for what they want, to ask for what they need. And if I hear women faking orgasms when they're talking to me, you do not do this, because you are doing yourself and your partner a disservice.
Definitely.
Because it's not all about that, first of all. And second of all, you want to connect. And if you're faking something, or if you're doing something because you don't want to do it, that partner feels it. It's not fair. You know, you need to do it because you want to. And this is where it's kind of like saying that men look at sex, that women think that men just want the act. But when you understand that your partner really wants to feel loved, and the way they feel loved is through sex, you can look at it a different way and say, no, they don't just want sex. They want to feel loved. Yeah. And you want to be able to enjoy it as well. And so think of it, instead of, I'm going to give my partner sex, don't give your partner sex, give yourself pleasure. At the same time, you are connecting with your partner.
Yes.
And that is what I see so often, so many women having sex out of obligation. And once in a while, there's nothing wrong with doing something just to make your partner happy. I mean, you're tired, you had a long day, you want to just stroke and do what you want to do, you know, get it done just to get it done. And, you know, I'm tired, but, you know, I want to make you happy. There's nothing wrong with that sometimes. But it hurts me to see, first of all, the women not wanting to do it and just feeling like they have to do it and just going through the motions, because it's such an empty feeling. And then it also hurts me to see the men that are feeling so unloved because they know their partner's only doing it just to do it.
Yeah.
And so we really need to understand both sides, and we really need to figure out and the desire behind it. And this is what I wanted to bring up also, which we can talk about, is you have this sexual response cycle. And you have, now I just completely lost my, it goes up.
Yep.
What's the word? Arousal. Okay. It goes arousal, and you get to the peak, and you have the orgasm, and you go back down. Okay. But in order to get aroused, you have to have desire.
Yes.
And in order to build the desire, you have to be able to have some of these forms of intimacy to feel connected to your partner. Okay. And a lot of people think, well, I don't know why I'm just not horny. I just don't feel it. Well, because you're not doing anything to build desire. And sometimes when I talk to these people, they're just like, okay, well, I said, well, what's your day like? And they'll tell me about their day. And then I'm like, okay, well, what did you do during the day? Did you talk to your partner? Did you share flirty texts? Did you have affection. Well, no, they're busy all day. I said, so you don't talk to them from the minute they leave the house. They come home at 5:30, 6 o'clock. You have dinner, you take care of the kids, you get into the bedroom, and you're supposed to be horny. Yeah. You know, it doesn't work like that. So that's why you're not in the mood. What are you doing to build that desire to allow for that arousal?
Mm-hmm. Would that be foreplay? I mean,
it could be foreplay, but how do you even get into the bedroom to start the foreplay? The foreplay needs to start outside of the bedroom. So that's where I'm talking about those texts, even just saying, I can't wait to see you tonight. Or, you know, oh, I want to just kiss you all over when I get home. You know, or just saying, oh, I want to be able to take a bath with you and clean your back, you know, or wash your back or something like that. Or we don't need to have sex, but I just want to take a nice shower together because I've had a long day.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to do some things during the day that help you kind of build a little fantasy, build a little excitement, build something. Because you can get into the bedroom and have the foreplay, which is great. You need that foreplay. But how do you actually get in the mood to get into the bedroom?
Yes.
And that's through finding different forms of intimacy through your day to be able to help build it for the evening or the morning, whatever you're in the mood for.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Very good information, Doc. I appreciate it. I mean, it kind of opened my mind up to a little bit more of what I was thinking intimacy was. And I'm pretty sure our viewers will get some information from you. It's just, I don't know, it's just funny being a guy, hearing all this and knowing most of it, have done a lot of it, but then I fall short on some of that stuff. Okay. You know, the foreplay for me is when you get in the bedroom. Okay. Right. But have I done something, you know, prior to that? Sure. You know, the text messages, the hugs, you know, the different sayings or something. But you really, really educated me on these different forms of intimacy and how it's so important to keep that alive in your relationship. Yeah.
Right. And especially for the women, you need that build up and not just the foreplay in the bedroom. You have to be able to build it up to have the desire to get into the bedroom. That's the important thing.
Yeah. So you're tying it all together, saying that all of this has to do, you have to start from, to keep the relationship going, is you have to keep it, whether it's within the bedroom, whether it's with your mind and your emotions, all of this stuff is connected.
Right. And there's nothing
to be the bedroom, but I mean,
right. But it doesn't always have to be. And I don't want it to say that, oh, you have to have all this, you know, build up and everything. There's many times you could be sitting there having dinner and the kids are watching TV and all of a sudden you could just look at each other and smile and be like, let's go in the bathroom real quick, you know, bend over, baby, whatever it is, you know, do something really quick and fun, just to do it with not to necessarily have the intention of an orgasm, but just to be playful and just to have a good time and just to keep the fire going. And that's the thing, is that you don't always have to have sex to enjoy it. You need to make sure that you have some of that other quality time where you're doing other fun things like that too.
Yes. Thank you for that. And Michaela, do you have anything, statements to say or anything to ask or?
No, I think this is super important. I think every couple should definitely listen to something like this. Even my husband, he was at the beginning, before he had to get on a phone call, he was like listening. I heard like his ears would like perk up and he would like shake his head a little bit, because both of us are very sensitive. I'm more emotional and he's a little bit more sensitive. And I think what works with us so well is that we're very in tune with each other and like doing the little things of intimacy, because I myself just have things that like I'm working with. And I was always like, when we first got together, I was like, I don't know if I don't give him sex, if that is not going to be enough, like this and that. But I think just growing with each other, it's more than that. So this is super helpful, I think, for every single couple.
Well, you just said the words that I say I hear all the time. Do I give him sex? Mm-hmm. Rather than, do I own my pleasure so we can enjoy sex together? And that's the important thing, is that women need to learn that you're not giving sex. You need to own it.
It's so true. And it's such a thing of empowerment too, when like that it changes in yourself, that, you know, it's not something that I'm giving. It's not a task that I'm doing. It's something that I enjoy. So
that's awesome.
That's very important. Thank you.
That is awesome. Well, I tell you what, we are going to cut this short tonight, folks. We appreciate Dr. Stacy Friedman to talk with us tonight on a very, very special topic, exploring the various forms of intimacy. And you explained everything so well, and I just hope that this helps couples out there. And if they need your assistance, doctor, could you give us your information about your business, your phone number? Go ahead, plug yourself.
All right. Well, I do work all over the world online, so you could reach me. We can do Zoom calls all over, and I do have an office in Boca, Florida. So my website is drstacyfriedman.com, and it's S-T-A-C-Y. There's no E. So drstacyfriedman.com. And I have my email on there. My phone number is all on there. You can find me on all the social media under drstacyfriedman.com, Instagram, Facebook, all that. I also have a free ebook that you can get if you go to my drstacyfriedman.com site. Click on the book link, and you can either get a hard paperback copy on Amazon, or you can get it for free and download it on that book link as well. And it's basically just an easy read for helping people find themselves and finding different ways to promote intimacy and better sex. And I also have two great Facebook groups. One is for women and one is for men. And the women one is called Intimacy, Sex, and Empowerment. And you can find that on Facebook. And the men's group is brand new. I started about 3 weeks ago. And that one's called Men's Sexual Health and Empowerment. And I like the idea of having one woman and one men, so that way people can have that privacy to be able to talk amongst themselves. And they are LGBTQ trans friendly. So I do have people of all different sorts on these pages.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was fun.
It was.
Dr. Stacy Friedman, international coach. We thank you once again for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. The Hope and Healing Foundation for Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Wellness, along with Dr. Stacy Friedman. We thank you tonight, and we see you next month, same time, same place.